welcome to the show. Learn Digital Advertising, Digital Daily News. Just a friendly reminder, if you like the news content, the way we bring it to you, please give us a like, subscribe, let us know how we can make it better. Got a couple of news updates coming up for you. First one up, we got Google Analytics combining web and app analytics.
All right, and this is really cool. We started seeing this pop up last week, and then we read a little bit about it from the Google blog. And what Google's doing now, a different type of property you can set up in Google Analytics now. So in the past, you could either choose a web property or an app property, and now Google has an option to merge the two and choose a web and app property, which is really cool. This is a brand new beta product, and I think the idea here is if you have an online application or mobile application, the mindset here is that they're not really that different from one another. It's just different ways for people to engage. So why don't we just merge these into the same analytics profiles and sort of unify the things that happen on each. So for example, you have a web app that allows people to, perform certain tasks, download certain things. If the mobile app sort of replicates that same process, why not just throw it all into, one profile, one property, which is really cool. One of the coolest parts of this, in my view, actually, is an upgrade to how Google is handling event tracking. So we're not seeing this now on the older types of properties in Google Analytics yet, but on the new one, you have the ability to turn on some automated events that are built in. So if you're currently using Tag Manager to do things like track button clicks or downloads or anything like that, Google's built a lot of this into sort of this new property type. So I'm super pumped because it's a lot less reliance on plugins and Tag Manager and that sort of thing. More of that's getting built into Google Analytics now. My guess is the reason for that is that apps are very event focused anyway. So in order to sort of merge both of these into one, they kind of want some unified platform that can easily detect when certain tasks are being completed. So that's a really cool feature. In addition to that, I should mention things like video downloads or video engagements, other downloads, stuff like that is all going to get built in as well.
Yeah, it sounds a lot simpler.
Yeah, definitely simpler. Not exactly sure on the implementation yet. We're going to do a tutorial on this and implement it on both sides and sort of see how that all merges together. Very interested to see how the interface, can you kind of just look at the web or just the app? Can you merge the two together? How does that kind of all go, and how easy is that data to derive, which will be interesting to see.
So I see it it requires Firebase SDK. What?
Yeah, so basically on the app side, so for this to work on your app, you're essentially going to implement the Firebase SDK, which will essentially handle all of the Google Analytics tracking for the app itself. And then on the website, we're assuming it's just the typical implementation, cut and paste code as well.
But I was looking into that. I'm not so sure yet, but the Firebase is for sure there.
Yep.
All right, cool.
So next, Juan's going to help us out with some Google Data Studio updates.
Definitely. We got some quick updates on Google Data Studio. So now they are including table drill down. So on the front end, you can actually drill down to the different metric or dimension. And actually dimensions only, it looks like. So no longer you have to build a couple of different dashboards for different dimensions for a client or yourself. You can actually just drill down right there on the front end, which is really cool, a lot simpler to use. And
so Juan, that is something that Google Analytics has been doing from day one, and it's taken Data Studio this long to get it. I'm totally excited about it. It makes tables a lot more useful. Super cool feature, and it's about freaking time.
Yeah, anytime something's front end, I'm assuming it's a little bit more complicated on the dev side, front end stuff, I'm not sure. But that definitely makes it a lot more helpful and easier to use. And we have drag and drop coming. Is that available now already?
It's available now.
Cool. So if you have cat pictures on your desktop, you can drag and drop right onto dashboards, which is a lot easier to use instead of importing images and stuff like that. So that is a simple update there, but definitely useful. Moving on, so we got Google indexing issues. So this happened a couple months back. There was a big uproar about web traffic going down for a lot of people. A little bit more information on that, Rick's been researching.
Sure, so Google, and this has happened up until recently, and it happens a few times over. So what's kind of cool when Google messes up is they sometimes expose sort of how things work a little bit in their explanations. And wanted to go through quickly what has happened recently with indexing issues. Another issue that we've seen recently also is some large news publications not being indexed at all with their news. And we kind of read through this a little bit and thought it'd be useful and interesting really just to try to explain it all. So to begin with, back in April, and this was sort of the biggest issue that a lot of people saw, Google basically lost part of the search index. So the search index is essentially this massive database of hundreds of billions of web pages that Google has saved some information on. And this search index gets, as Google explains, replicated at some extent to data centers all around the world. And the point of that is if you're sitting in a certain area and you query something, the only way for Google really to respond as quickly as they want to is to send you to a local data center. Now the issue arose when certain data centers were trying to sync with one another and part of the index was just dropped, lost completely, probably a lot of way complex stuff to as to how that happens. So the problem then became certain sites, obviously, part of their index being lost. Obviously, that means traffic loss and other things like that. Now, in addition to that, that sort of goes downstream then and affects things like Google Search Console. So back in April and even since then, you may have seen in Search Console the number of pages indexed on your site going down. It could have possibly affected traffic as well. And it affected some other Google tools as well. So all of this, according to Google, was resolved within a few days, just not really communicated clearly as to why it happened. A lot of webmasters obviously very worried. Did they do something wrong? Is there an algorithm shift? What is causing this? But that's essentially Google's explanation on this. Now, the next piece of this is the news issue, which Google's saying is completely unrelated. And basically for a short period of time around April as well, and it seems to be occurring since then too, Google's having a little bit of trouble gathering news content. So that's something that they've admitted and said, okay, we're having a little trouble. In addition to that, though, they also pointed to some publishers, and there were very specific publishers that were vocal about this, who actually had some weird redirect stuff going on their websites, and thus Google wasn't indexing things the way they might have either. So the whole news uproar, which I think was biggest with like the Washington Post and other things recently, had to do with a combination of the two, a Google issue, but also possibly some on-site sort of dev issues with these sites as well. So I always think it's really interesting when like big things happen like this, you get a little bit of insight into how Google functions, more so than you normally would. But.
Yeah, definitely. And I know they've been upgrading their technology as far as the data centers. So I know they've been moving over to the stronger processing units, the TPUs, I think they're called. So that I don't know if there's any kind of relationship there at all, but I know conspiracy theorists are going to have their way with the news. Yeah, if any article wasn't published during that time frame, you've got some room there to come up with a theory. But moving on, what we got next? We got conferences. Looks like some of them have already passed for August, but we do have some coming up in September, a little early here for you. But in August, the Digital Summit in Chicago is still coming up in the next couple of days, actually a week or so from now, the 28th and the 29th. So that's still available for August. And then a couple more coming in September. We got Inbound 2019 in Boston, Digital Summit in Washington, D.C., Digital Summit in Tampa, and Martech East. And all of these are happening in September, so you still got some room to get some tickets for those to attend.
All right, thank you, Juan. And as always, available on YouTube a couple times a week, daily digital marketing news. Subscribe, ring the bell. We'd love to see you next time. Thank you very much.